You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the biohealth capital region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in biohealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis, your host for BioTalk. And we have a returning guest today, and someone I'm becoming much more familiar with since he's actually joined the Biohealth Innovation Board in the last year, and we're working on regionalism between Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and all those good things. But he's also a serial entrepreneur who has had many ventures, and we're going to talk about his latest venture, MedPhlow. And we have Eric Edwards, the CEO of MedPhlow, with us today. Eric, welcome to BioTalk.
Great to see you again, Rich. Great to be with you. Exciting time here in the region, and really looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, it's always exciting to talk to you because you always have something new to talk about. So even though some people may have heard you before, most of the people have not. So why don't you do a little brief introduction for our listeners rather than me introduce you, because you know those things that are really meaningful you'd like to bring up about your background.
Yeah, happy to. So I'm Eric Edwards. I was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. So been in this region my entire life, and I really got involved in the pharma and biopharma industry out of college, where my identical twin brother and we grew up with life-threatening food allergies. We wanted to solve for the challenges that existed decades ago. There just weren't a lot of options for seriously allergic individuals, folks who could suffer from anaphylaxis. So with our life-threatening food allergies, we had to carry a life-saving dose of epinephrine. Back then, the only form available was the EpiPen. And so my brother trained as an engineer, and then I went to medical school and then did a PhD in pharmaceutical science. And we came together to try to build solutions that would help those living with life-threatening diseases. We founded a company called Kaléo, K-A-L-E-O, that invented and developed multiple drug-device combination products. And the leading product that made it to the market among several was AUVI-Q, which is a leading competitor to the EpiPen. Credit card size auto injector, talks to you like a defibrillator, has a retractable needle. And then we built an infant dose, the first infant dose of epinephrine for anaphylaxis in the world. Started that company, built it up over many years, built multiple drug device combination products, including drug device combination products for the opioid overdose epidemic and some medical countermeasure auto injectors. And we're just very blessed and fortunate to have a great team in place, great investors and folks who believed in our mission and vision. That resulted in 5 FDA approvals and multiple products on the market. And then we ended up selling our stake in that company. And I started consulting and then started another company, Phlow, Phlow, that was focused on securing the essential medicine supply chain in the United States of America. Leveraging our background and experience, we noticed that there was just this lack of attention for critical medicines and the supply chain for those medicines in the United States. And we started this company before COVID. And as we all know, COVID really catalyzed this awareness and understanding that there are real challenges with our supply chain across multiple sectors, but especially among our essential medicine and industrial base and the key active pharmaceutical ingredients that have been lost for decades overseas, that have struggled with antiquated technologies, equipment, and manufacturing techniques. And so Phlow set out to resecure the essential medicine supply chain. And those were the first 2 companies that will lead then to me founding this one. But we've been working for years and with a common theme. You know, I trained to be in that emergency medicine arena. I trained to focus on critical care. And for everything, the thing that really drives me is trying to fill gaps to really help save lives.
I was just going to say that. It sounds like you find interesting niches that sometimes have impacted you personally or people around you personally, and try to come up with solutions to address those gaps or those niches that nobody else has addressed. So congratulations on Kaléo and Phlow. Phlow has been tremendous boon for the region, for Virginia, for Richmond and everything. And I think you were one of the largest recipients as a private company during the COVID crisis from BARDA. And that had tremendous impact on your region, on your company, and what you're trying to do to build the ecosystem down in the Richmond area. So let's talk about the next venture, which you're also trying to fill another niche or gap that you identified, which is MedPhlow.
Yeah, so when we started Phlow, the theme was we needed to look at the essential medicine supply chain, and we were taking a perspective end to end. So Phlow Corporation started by really assessing the chemistry of these essential medicines. And then we wanted to redo the supply chain, beginning with the active pharmaceutical ingredients, but then moving along the spectrum and vertically integrating to have that pathway to get to finished dosage forms. But moving beyond that, we started innovating and we started putting some capital to work on going beyond the vial, going beyond the syringe. And that's when we started investing in some innovation platforms. We invented a few platforms. Some were great ideas, some were horrible ideas, as is the case with innovation. But one platform in particular in this space of novel essential medicine delivery was one that really gained steam. We did a lot of market research. We tried to uncover what were gaps in critical medication administration. And we discovered that there had not been a lot of work on multi-medication automatic bolus administration technology. And very specifically, what I mean by that is the ability to deliver multiple drugs simultaneously or in a series for critical care environments. So we built this platform, AMAS, and it made it through significant stages of development. Phlow put capital in. We got through several successful FDA pre-IND meetings. And then ultimately, our board of directors decided that this is a real platform with multiple products that could inform a pipeline, and we needed to spin this out into a new company. And that is how MedPhlow was born. MEDPHLOW formed in 2023, really focused on novel essential medicine delivery solutions where Phlow Corporation could remain focused on securing that chemistry and advanced development and manufacturing framework as a leading contract development and manufacturing organization. And then MedPhlow would focus on innovation and the delivery of these critical medicines, leveraging multiple platforms, this one being the first.
And how do you balance your time between Phlow and MedPhlow, Eric?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first and foremost is it's about having the right team and having leaders in place. When Phlow really took hold, we spend the majority of the time, obviously, on that company, but I elevated a couple of folks inside the company. Dan Hackman's our president. He runs the day-to-day at Phlow Corporation. I wanted to leave some space and time for innovation, and thankfully we have a board of directors that has allowed me to have that margin to focus on both. But the bottom line is I'm an innovator and inventor at heart. And so when you're innovating and when you're inventing new things, you want to try things out and see where they can take you. MedPhlow is 100% wholly owned right now by Phlow Corporation. We do have some new investors that we'll talk about today that are joining forces, and we're about to launch our Series A here. But right now it's about having the right team, having the right partners, and able to really drive forward in that technology platform. And so we've relied on team members, partners, organizations that can help us reach our objectives as we develop this technology platform.
We have a lot of entrepreneurs and early stage startups and other people listening to these podcasts, Eric. Let's talk a little bit about advice you'd give. You're an innovator. You come up with lots of ideas. All of them are not going to work. But how do you determine when it's a go, no go? When do you believe you get to a stage where it's ready to go? And you said the board said, hey, there's something there, let's do it. But what do you think is that magic moment when you believe there's something there and it's time to form that spin out, create a new technology, look at a new marketplace to go after?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I wish I could say I was really, really excellent at that my entire life. And the truth is, you go through this trial and error period, and then you get better and better at realizing, yeah, this has got legs. We need to move forward. So whenever I'm advising entrepreneurs, I always tell them, you need to fail fast and you need to fail forward. And so learn from your mistakes and realize when the market is telling you that something's not right or that there is really an unmet need that is not being met, listen to what the market is telling you. On the other hand, if the market's telling you we already have enough innovation in that area, or it's overcrowded, or this really isn't going to fulfill an unmet need, especially after you start getting advisors, scientific experts, physician scientists, and others involved who are your end customers or end users, you really need to listen to those folks. So for me, it's about recognizing that you have to have some level of market research from the very beginning to validate that unmet need. And then see where things progress from there, always paying attention to this dichotomy that you have of technical challenges to actually build the system, and then market challenges where it doesn't matter if you have the best technology in the world, if you can't actually get it onto the market, if you can't find the right payer reimbursement strategy or commercial strategy, it doesn't matter how beautiful and elegant your technology platform is. So you have to keep those things in mind. And when the market's sending signals to you on a reproducible basis, Rich. So not just one off. A lot of people are going to tell you this is no good. No one needs this. But when you start hearing that consistently, especially from the purchasers or the end users, you need to pay attention to it.
That's well stated. And generally, when I have this communication with other entrepreneurs, is the difference between getting to a stage of proof of concept versus the stage of proof of commercial relevance. Is someone going to buy it? Is it scalable? Basically, is it fundable? And I think what you're talking about with MedPhlow right now, you've gotten to the commercial relevance stage and it's ready to launch, and you're in that process of doing that. But let's talk about your foundational technology and what is the differential advantage you have with MedPhlow and where you recognize this need and this gap and this niche that exists in the marketplace.
Yeah, so this technology platform was born out of, again, I think you went back to that original theme, personal experience. So I got into emergency care early on. So I joined a local rescue squad when I was 17 years old. I've been with that rescue squad ever since, and I still ride on an ambulance today, even as an MD. Love training paramedics. I maintained my paramedic certification. And one of the things that I noticed and just was ever present, and it informed not only the foundation around Phlow, where we had drug shortages, critical drug shortages on our ambulances, but also in how these medicines were administered. We noticed that there's just been a lack, a dearth of innovation in how drugs were administered, especially sterile injectable drugs intravenously during high stress, chaotic, critical care environments. So what we started thinking through was, is there a way to improve the practice of medication administration during resuscitation and other clinical scenarios that require coordination and management of multiple medications? That's what led to this idea of pioneering a new multi-medication automated bolus administration technology platform with an initial product focus on improving outcomes in sudden cardiac arrest. So that is our initial product. It is focused on sudden cardiac arrest, which leads to close to 500,000 deaths across the United States each year. And that's an area where we knew there was an opportunity that was ripe for disruption.
Why don't you tell us how it works?
Sure. Yeah. So this platform basically is the combination of a pump with a system that really provides that automatic protocol-driven administration of medicines that are critical for the first 15 minutes of cardiac arrest. So for sudden cardiac arrest victims, time is the most critical element for survival. In fact, for one of the drugs that this product administers, epinephrine, for every single minute of delay in the restoration of cardiac function, you basically have a decrease of survival by as much as 10%. So time is life. If you think back to the days where, if folks remember, depending on how old the audience is here, they might remember 20 years ago, all we had was manual defibrillators. We had defibrillators that basically you would have to charge, put gel on, and then shock. And then that led to innovation in pads for defibrillation. And then that led to automatic defibrillation and then automatic external defibrillators that got into the public access realm, meaning it enabled this complex thing, meaning delivering electricity to get into the hands of anyone everywhere. And so what our goal here with this platform is to do the same thing for medication administration. It's to enable rapid, concise, protocol-driven delivery of critical medicines and allow eventually even a layperson to administer these drugs in combination with defibrillation, because we now know it's not just early defibrillation that matters for survival, it's early medication or advanced cardiac life support medication administration. So that's what this is all about. It is about these chaotic situations that are codes, whether it's an adult or, God forbid, it's a child that goes into cardiac arrest. And it's about enabling these code team members or any responder to quickly respond in an emergency with the right drugs without having to worry about weight-based dosing, drawing up the medication, human errors, and getting those drugs on time as fast as possible to restore that cardiac function.
One of the challenges as an innovator in trying to change people's behavior is really it requires education and then also requires training. So talk a little bit about what you see is how much education is needed for the user with your administration technology, and then how much training is required, and how long will it take to get to where the defibrillator is now, where you see them all at sporting events, different offices, and all over the United States and almost every location.
Yeah, changing behavior, especially physician and clinician behavior, is not easy for any company, for any innovator. So the way we think about this is you want to have a stepwise, milestone-driven progression towards a paradigm shift. So the first thing that we're going to be focusing on is automating that medication administration portion. That means having the dose calculations that were previously manual to be automated, having the ability to put in this pod into this pump. It recognizes the pod as being either adult or a pediatric pod, and you not having to fool around with kilogram-based, weight-based dosing regimens, and then automatically administering that at the point of care into an intravenous line. First, we'll start in the hospital setting and then extend that into the pre-hospital setting. There's been a lot of parallels. Defibrillation was the one that you just mentioned, but there's technologies out there, for example, the intraosseous infusion space. We used to manually give IOs. Now we use the Easy IO and other systems to quickly administer medication. So we'll be following a parallel commercial strategy where we will partner with those folks who already have these channels in place for mass distribution. And then we will work to demonstrate the value of the system. The value that this will bring not only is rapid, concise, protocol-driven delivery, but the data that this is going to produce is going to be very rich. In fact, it's going to be enabling technology that allows there to be a handshake between the cardiac monitor and the medication administration system so that we can coordinate the delivery of these drugs. For example, if there's a shockable rhythm, the system will know we need to follow the shockable protocol. If it switches to a non-shockable rhythm like asystole or pulseless electrical activity, it will change that protocol. And so first and foremost, it's starting and putting this in place with already existing protocols among the American Heart Association in settings that are already available. Then over time, we will extend and expand the delivery of this to a greater number of individuals who have less and less training. And so I think that's the approach that we're taking. The current standard of care is completely manual. All of these dose calculations can lead to use errors. So this is about automating that medication administration, getting these drugs on quickly, and then dealing with multiple critical situations and multiple environments, beginning with these critical drugs for cardiac arrest and then extending to other indications.
I love your analogy with pods because you're going to develop the Keurig for the medical industry, basically.
That's right. And these pods, they can contain a variety of different medications. For example, in our pipeline, we have a pod that will be utilized for sedation and pain management. If your users remember the Boston Marathon bombing, that was super tragic. What most individuals dealt with through that blast injury was a lot of extremity injuries, very traumatic. And now think about the chaos of a mass casualty incident or an incident that involves a lot of trauma, and you have to keep multiple individuals under pain management and sedation. Well, today, right now, what you do is you go up, you start that IV line, and then you give them morphine or some opioid, and then you write that on their forehead with the time that you gave them. And then you're trying to remember how long was it since that was given. So this platform, as another example, will be able to be hooked up to multiple patients. You'll have one centralized location that can monitor and manage multiple bolus administration for critical environments, whether it's drugs for cardiac arrest or drugs for sedation and pain management on the battlefield or in the public sector. So there's a lot of use cases here that this is going to apply to. And we're just first starting with the one that is right in front of us, which is trying to disrupt and improve on how medicines has been administered, which hasn't changed in over 50 years, and that's during cardiac arrest to try to help save lives.
Eric, with any innovation or something that's new that people are trying to introduce, the easiest way to do it is to use the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. But when you mentioned the word pod, I finally understood better what your medicine administration system is going to do. It involves a pump and a pod. Can you build on that pump and pod concept for the listeners a little bit for us?
Yeah, that's a fantastic pickup, Rich. So, this automated medication administration system is this compact system that is meant to be easily deployed, and it contains two components. One is a durable component, which is the pump that has all the electronics and can automate the dosing algorithms and follow protocol driven delivery. But then there's this separate component, which is the medication pod that can contain multiple medications. You can have an adult version of the pod or a pediatric version in the pod. And that's exactly what we have for this first indication for sudden cardiac arrest. And a responder will come on scene, that IV will be hooked up, and then they will say, okay, this is a pediatric patient. Let's choose the pediatric pod. You place it in the pump. It recognizes it's a pediatric pod, and then it follows that protocol-driven delivery automatically. You don't have to worry about calculating doses or weight-based dosing. You can ensure that it's following along that pediatric advanced life support protocol. And that pod and pump concept can be extended to multiple other disease states and indications. So that's exactly right.
Well, this sounds like a revolutionary technology, and I hope that you are extremely successful because the lives that can be impacted by this will be many. But anytime you're trying to pioneer with a new technology, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money. So let's talk a little bit about how you plan to fund this new technology. And you mentioned something about a Series A, but I think you're going to look at multiple strategies for funding something like this that is really a pioneering innovation, which is not something that can really evolve with like $1 million here or $2 million there.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is we had to spend the money to get both the drug, device, regulatory, clinical, and market research base foundational work completed. And we did that leveraging private dollars from Phlow Corporation. So Phlow funded the initial development. That led us to validate the unmet need. It led us to get drug on, not only pharmaceuticals formulated, but drug on stability, identify our supply chain partners, our contract manufacturers, get out there in front of the FDA to validate that clinical program and pathway. And this one's complex because it's multiple drugs that you're trying to get approved by the FDA and the device constituent portion from the chemistry, manufacturing, and controls perspective, while at the same time getting out there and talking to those who would actually be purchasing this and validating that this is going to be something that would really help them get on every crash cart in the hospital, get into every single ambulance, and then beyond. And so we did that work and then determined this is real. This is a platform that not only customers desire, but is going to improve survivability. We aligned with the FDA and the clinical program strategy. We aligned on the supply chain and ultimately then decided to raise a seed round in a safe vehicle. So that's when we first got outside investment from angel investors as well as the VIPC came in to support launching that.
That's a Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, which is a state agency to make investments in emerging companies in Virginia.
That's exactly right. And it's great to see not only going back to the beginning of the conversation with biohealth innovation and what we're trying to do regionally, but all of these different funding entities are now having more conversations than ever before and how to collaborate. It's just been a pleasure to watch that also from the sideline, from the perspective of a board member. But the VIPC and some angel networks jumped in, and we decided that once we got to the point where we're now in the capital intensive stage. So very specifically, we're talking about multi-cavity tooling and needing to now conduct our clinical studies. That is when we needed to go out and really focus on raising that Series A. So we're doing that through a traditional model, talking to venture capital firms, leading firms, as well as a parallel pathway where we'll be looking at different government funding opportunities, Rich, as well as going out and talking right now to our potential commercial partners, because there is an opportunity for joint development here, being that the system needs to communicate and have a handshake with data sharing with other technologies, such as cardiac monitors. So we're leveraging those opportunities. And I encourage any entrepreneur, when you're going out to try to find pathways to develop your technology, go after non-dilutive capital and then look at strategics and then look at traditional venture capital. And today's day and age where the capital markets are still in recovery mode, you have to be creative in looking at financing resources.
Yeah, I think your three-pronged approach is something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't practice because they try to do it in a linear fashion rather than a parallel fashion. I think it's extremely smart to look at going after government non-dilutive funding, your private equity you're looking for, and strategic partners in parallel because you never know exactly which one's going to hit. And the other thing is sometimes the government funding might take 6 months, 12 months, 18 months before it actually materializes, and they don't write you a check up front with the government. Basically, you have to hit milestones to get reimbursed for what you expend, whereas with private equity, it still might be milestone driven, but you might be able to get your money in a large chunk or a tranche up front with your investment. So how have you found being located in Richmond, Virginia, trying to go out and talk to investors? We know it's very challenging right now for early stage companies because everybody's sort of going down the path where they want clinical stage companies, they want to do bigger rounds, they want to do bigger checks. How are you finding the initial reaction in this venture capital and the private equity world right now, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think that investors, they don't care as much around location, although there obviously are advantages to being in certain hubs. And I know that this region that we're in with biohealth innovation is becoming a leading hub. But from a Richmond, Virginia geographic perspective, we have not had challenges in talking to investors. Now, sometimes we have to go beyond our walls, right, and go outside of Virginia. But I think investors still value high quality teams that are experienced, that know how to take a technology from ideation and conception all the way through FDA approval and appreciate the challenges on the other side of that, of how to actually commercialize a technology and a platform. And so we've been able to do that very successfully. This is right in our wheelhouse. When you've done 5 of these before and gotten through the FDA for drug device combination products, you know what to expect, and you know where some of the risk areas that you have to pay attention to up front are located. So I think that so far, I mean, we just launched this process, but I've spoken to just a handful of investors and all of them are very enthusiastic about learning more. I do believe that what we have going for us with this advanced pharmaceutical development and manufacturing hub that is being created in Central Virginia, and all of the work that is happening to collaborate and coordinate, not only in Virginia, but in that Maryland, DC corridor, is helping us as we articulate our vision for building our team, for workforce development, for collaborating with strategic partners. So I think we're in really good shape here and very proud to say that Richmond is on the rise, just like all of the folks within the biohealth capital region, working more collaboratively than ever before and really seeing opportunities to engage. And I think that's going to lead to success, not just with MedPhlow and Phlow, but for all the companies that are a part of this region.
It really takes people who have been successful and demonstrated the value of collaboration and cooperation working together, which brings other people together. So I thank you for your support and your vision for recognizing there's a need to bring people together, Maryland, DC, Virginia, and also outside of this region working together. But I'm going to do something different with you that I haven't done with anybody on BioTalk. And I'm talking to Dr. Eric Edwards, who's the CEO of MedPhlow. And since you're out there doing a raise, you had 7 minutes up in the investment and conference that we had about a month ago up in Rockville at USP. But what's your elevator pitch right now for MedPhlow as you're talking to people and you really only have 60 seconds or 2 minutes to talk to them, Eric?
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity, Rich. So MedPhlow is a company that is really focused on changing the paradigm in how drugs are administered at the point of care for critical scenarios. And the company, founded by an extremely experienced team and a model that has been successful before, has really built a platform that automates the medication of critical drugs, first and foremost for sudden cardiac arrest, but extends well beyond those into other critical arenas. We've gone through successful market validation. We've had 3 successful FDA meetings already. We have drug on stability. The device is past the prototype stage. We've identified our supply chain partners, and we're already talking to commercial entities, as well as initial pricing and reimbursement strategic plans being in place. So with all of that, we have greatly reduced the risk of this development plan. And it's a great opportunity for anyone to get on the bandwagon early on for a platform that will save lives. And that's the focus here. It's about saving lives in a broad area and really doing for medication administration what public access defibrillation did over the last 20 years and empowering the everyday person to be able to help save a life.
Very good, Eric. Where do I sign up, basically? Can I write you a check today?
Love it, Rich.
Let's talk about the future now and major milestones. Let's talk about the major things you need to accomplish to keep MedPhlow going at the pace you have right now. And what do you see as the greatest barriers in front of you?
Yeah, thank you. I think right now the whole focus is trying to jump in and choose the right capital partners and providers. I say this to entrepreneurs all the time, just because money's available, it doesn't mean it's the right capital for your company. So for us, we have a unique situation where we don't have a cap table right now. After spending over $4.5 million on development, we don't have a cap table that has 150 people on it. So this is a great opportunity for the right investors to come on board and really help support this platform delivery that is going to change the way that drugs are administered across a variety of their indications, beginning first with sudden cardiac arrest. This is something that is relatable for everyone. So every single person has a family member that may have suffered from cardiovascular disease or stroke or have gotten in an automobile accident where, unfortunately, you are at risk for going into cardiac arrest. So people understand CPR. People understand the need for technologies to help improve lives. And unfortunately, when you go into sudden cardiac arrest, 90 to 95% of individuals will die. So this is an opportunity to get on the ground floor to really help move the needle in a manner that is significant. And that's what really I'm focused on right now, is finding the right investment partners who recognize the significance of this technology platform and what it could mean for the lives of so many. I'm also focused on choosing the right commercial partners and the right collaborators, as well as building out the team. Right now, I've partnered with my identical twin brother, since we've been through this before, and his company, Kymanox, is doing a lot of the development work. So we've got just experts in their fields on regulatory and quality and manufacturing and supply chain who are working across the spectrum to drive this towards fruition. And it's right now around raising that next round of capital to get us to that next milestone, which for us will be now really starting down that clinical program strategy.
Well, it sounds like you have a plan that is executable, well laid out, and nothing like having a twin brother to help you in the implementation of it. That sounds like a future BioTalk. I'd like to have both Edwards brothers on a BioTalk after you raise the A and as you're moving down the road with MedPhlow a little further sometime in 2025. I think having the twin brothers would be fun to do.
We'd be happy to.
Is there anything that you want to tell the listeners that we haven't discussed related to MedPhlow, anything about the BioHealth Capital Region, anything about you personally that you'd like to convey sort of as closing comments to this podcast?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Rich. For those who are listening, who are entrepreneurs and are trying to get their companies off the ground, the first thing I tell them is just don't give up. Make sure that they're getting great people around them, and then keep that focus and keep that energy that really got you involved in whatever you're working on and you're passionately pursuing. Just keep that forefront each and every day. Remain resilient. Don't quit. Secondly, I would just say for those who are listening, the focus in our lives right now, with all the chaos going on in this world, should be on doing something significant. Success by Webster's dictionary and in this world is defined as achieving wealth, power, and fame. And I can tell you right now, that's not what we should be focusing on. We should be focusing on significance. And so make sure whatever you're working on leaves its mark on society and just be significant. And for those who are interested in learning more about MedPhlow, go to MEDPHLOW, medphlow.com. Watch the video. If you're interested in learning more about what we're doing or you want to be a part of it, let us know. Just reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you more about what we have in store for changing the paradigm of medication administration across a variety of therapeutic conditions.
Thank you, Dr. Eric Edwards, the CEO of MedPhlow. This has been a very interesting and stimulating podcast with you, I always learn something new when we're talking, Eric. And I think you are inspirational. It's great that you're an innovator, but more importantly, other than an innovator, you have a vision for how to implement and execute, other than just having that vision for an idea, sometimes which just dies on that table. So I want to thank you for being on BioTalk again today. I thank you for everything you're doing for the BioHealth Capital Region, as well as serving on the BHI board, because I think you have a message that will resonate with a number of entrepreneurs, researchers, and scientists who have innovative ideas but have no idea of how to get them into the marketplace. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for your leadership. And let me just say, as a board member for BioHealth Innovation, it has been a pleasure, and it's exciting just to see all the energy. It doesn't matter if you're in medical devices or diagnostics or pharma or biopharma or biotechnology. The future's bright for this region. And it's all about collaboration and relationships, building authentic community and vulnerable trust together, and just really appreciate the opportunity to continue to be a part of this community and to collaborate and make that Maryland, DC, and Virginia region even stronger in the future.
Thank you very much, Eric Edwards.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.